I've never seen so many retirees make the same mistake all at the same time, and the worst part is it feels logical. So today I'm going to show you exactly what that mistake is and how it can be quietly destroying a retirement portfolio. I'll walk you through two of the most common examples of people who end up making this mistake, and I'll show you exactly what we do at Sparrow Financial to help our clients avoid it using something that we call the nest egg strategy. And at the end, I'll also share some real historical examples to help you figure out what setup makes the most sense for your situation. The key thing to understand is this: the investment strategies that work during the wealth accumulation stage of your life are not necessarily the right strategies once you begin to draw from your portfolio in retirement. That's where this mistake first begins. And when enough people are making the same mistake, it actually starts to feel normal and can start to feel safe. But what we'll see is that normal is not always safe in retirement. There are two common portfolio situations I see when retirees first come to us. The first one is someone who's managed their own investments for years and done well. Let's call him Bob. The second is someone who's worked with an advisor and was placed into a balanced, let's say 60-40 portfolio. Let's call her Kathy. So two completely different paths, but they often lead to the exact same issue. Because retirement isn't just a continuation of investing as things were, it's a completely different phase of life. When you're building wealth, mistakes or market corrections, they can be corrected with time or savings or continued income and some patience. But when you're retired and when you start to draw from your portfolio, that margin of error is much, much smaller. And there is a new risk that gets introduced, something called sequence of return risk. On top of that, people are living longer than they ever have, which means their portfolios also need to last longer. Many people are choosing to retire soon, or at least want the flexibility to, and market volatility never goes away. Let's look at mistake number one. This is often the do-it-yourself investor, and to be clear, there's nothing wrong with managing your own investments. In many cases, these are disciplined people who have saved consistently, invested wisely, and have built meaningful wealth as a result of their efforts. But now they're entering retirement, and they're looking at the last 10 to 15 years thinking, why would I change now? The S&P 500 has done great. US large cap growth has strong returns, and maybe they own individual names like Apple, Microsoft, or Nvidia, or funds that might be heavily concentrated in those areas. The thinking here is totally understandable. This is what got me here. Why would I stop? But here's one of the most important ideas in retirement planning. The rules that got you to retirement from an investment standpoint are not the same rules that get you through retirement. Those are two different landscapes that have very different needs from your investment portfolio. Let's look at Bob. Bob is 62 years old with a $2 million portfolio. Most of it is in NASDAQ style growth investments, and that portfolio has served him extremely well. In fact, it may be the reason why he can retire at all. Bob retires and says, I'll draw 5% a year. If my portfolio has historically grown at strong rates, this should be completely fine. Then 2022 happens and the NASDAQ falls by roughly 33%. Right away, Bob's $2 million drops to $1,340,000. But that's only part of the issue, because Bob is now retired. He's also pulling money out every year. He still needs to live and he still has bills. So if he withdraws $100,000, 5% of his original portfolio, his balance falls because the markets and his withdrawals. His portfolio is now closer to $1,240,000. In 1 year, he's down roughly 38%. Here's where the math surprises most people. If you're down 38%, how much do you think you need to gain to just get back to even? Most people instinctively say, well, I'm down 38%, so I need 38% to get back. But the real answer is 61.3%. Here's a simpler version. If you have $100 and lose 50%, you now have $50. If you then gain 50% the following year, you're not back to 100, you're only back to $75. So to recover from a 50% loss, you actually now need 100% gain. And that's the danger. And it has a name, which I mentioned earlier, which is sequence of return risk. Sequence of return risk means the timing of your returns matter, not just the average. A major downturn early on in retirement does far more damage than that exact same downturn later on, even if the long run average works out to be exactly the same, which means losses have a disproportionately large impact on how far your money goes. So for Bob, after the decline and the withdrawal, he now needs roughly 61% just to get back to where he started. And the problem continues to compound. If Bob still wants to withdraw $100,000 the following year, that's no longer 5% of his portfolio. It's actually closer to 8.1%. He's trying to recover from a major decline while simultaneously pulling out much larger percentage of what's left. And that's mistake number one. Taking a portfolio that was great for the accumulation stage of life and assuming it's automatically right for deaccumulation. Now, let's look at mistake number two. This is often the retiree who has worked with an investment advisor, and instead of the portfolio being too aggressive, it becomes too generic. This is often where we see the classic 60-40 portfolio, 60% stocks, 40% bonds. And to be clear, 60-40 is not automatically wrong. There are people for whom that allocation makes complete sense. The problem is when it becomes the starting point instead of the conclusion. When someone ends up in a 60-40 portfolio, not because their plan requires it, but simply because it sounded balanced or because of how old they were or a risk questionnaire that they did, that's a very different thing. Let's look at Kathy's example. Kathy is also retired and she has 1.8 million in her 60-40 portfolio. Now on the surface, that sounds prudent. It's diversified and responsible and risk is being managed. But when we look deeper at Kathy's actual situation, we might find something important. Maybe she has a strong pension, maybe she has CPP and OAS, maybe her home is paid off and her spending is relatively modest. So after looking at her full income picture, we find out that she only needs an additional $50,000 a year from her portfolio. That changes everything. Because now the real question is not what portfolio do retirees usually have? The real question is, what does Kathy's portfolio actually need to do? That's a completely different question. Bonds can absolutely have their role. Their job is usually stability, liquidity, and protection against volatility, not maximizing returns. They act more like a buffer. Over the long run, they have historically underperformed the stock market significantly. So a generic portfolio can be just as dangerous, but in a quieter way. It might not blow up as dramatically as, let's say, Bob's portfolio, but it can leave a huge amount of opportunity on the table. Take Kathy's 1.8 million portfolio over 30-year retirement. The difference between a 6% return and an 8% return, it doesn't sound like much, but 6%, that portfolio grows to about $10,300,000. And at 8%, it grows to over $18 million. That's nearly $8 million difference from that small 2% change in annual returns. The question isn't what percentage of bonds sounds balanced. The practical question is, how much safe money do we actually need to set aside so that Kathy can continue spending through difficult markets without being forced to sell long-term investments at depressed prices? So now you have both sides. Too aggressive, vulnerable to early losses. Too conservative, leaves massive opportunity on the table. Different problems, same outcome, a portfolio that isn't aligned for retirement. So what do you actually do? At Sparrow, we use something we call the nest egg strategy. And the idea is pretty simple. Separate your portfolio into two jobs. One part is for income, one part is for growth. Start by looking at your total monthly spending and subtracting any guaranteed income sources like CPP, OAS, workplace pensions, or rental income. For example, if your total monthly need is $10,000 and your guaranteed income provides $6,000, you need $4,000 per month or $48,000 per year from your investment portfolio. That $48,000 number becomes the guide for building each egg in your nest. The first egg is $48,000 placed in a high interest savings investment. This funds your monthly income withdrawals because it's liquid, stable, and preserves capital while earning some interest. The second egg is another $48,000 placed into a 1-year GIC because GICs typically offer better rates of return than a savings account. From there, the structure continues. We take another $48,000 into a 2-year GIC, then a 3-year, and so on, until you've built anywhere from 3 to 5 years of required income safely inside your nest. Now, how many eggs depends on the individual, both financially and in terms of comfort. In most cases, we're aiming for a buffer that covers approximately 3 to 5 years of withdrawals. Historically, many market downturns have taken roughly that long to recover. The nest egg strategy operates as a rolling system. So in year 1, withdrawals come from the savings account. As that gets drawn down, the 1-year GIC matures and that gets rolled into the savings account for the next year. The 2-year GIC now becomes the 1-year, the 3-year becomes the 2-year, and so on. Each year, we have to make a decision together. Do we replenish the longest term GIC? If markets have performed well, we use the gains from that investment portfolio to purchase a new 5-year GIC, maintaining that buffer. If markets are down, we can delay replenishing our nest egg for up to 5 years, allowing our portfolio to recover. This creates a natural discipline. You draw from stability when markets are weak, and you rebuild protection when markets are strong. Over time, the interest earned on the savings and GICs tend to track reasonably close to inflation, though the income amount should be reviewed regularly. If $48,000 is no longer sufficient due to rising costs, adjustments can be made when adding new eggs. Now, no strategy is without trade-offs. Holding a portion in cash and guaranteed investments means accepting a lower return on that segment, and it requires ongoing attention. But in exchange, you gain something that's often undervalued in retirement planning: peace of mind. You could, in theory, turn off the news, turn off the TV for 5 years and never have to worry about the income that you're receiving or whether today's markets will affect your ability to do the things that you love. As promised, here are some real-world contexts to help you decide how many eggs makes the most sense for your nest. Market volatility is normal and an expected part of investing in retirement. Understanding what typically happens during different types of downturns can help reduce stress and build confidence in your plan. As you can see, different types of downturns have very different recovery timelines, from a few weeks for a small dip, all the way to 1 to 3 years for a full bear market. These are historical averages, and every event is unique, but they frame expectations and they highlight why having a buffer in place matters. 2 recent examples show just how differently these events can play out. During the COVID-19 crash in early 2020, markets dropped more than 30% in a matter of weeks, but recovered to pre-crash levels in under 6 months. Those who panicked and pulled out missed one of the fastest bear market recoveries in history. By contrast, the 2008 financial crisis saw international markets fall over 50% and take more than 2 years to fully recover. So whether you're a do-it-yourself investor or someone who's been placed into a generic portfolio, you now have the context to understand sequence of return risk and how the nest egg strategy is designed to protect against it. If you'd like to learn more about how Sparrow Financial can help you with your retirement income planning, there's a link to our website in the notes below. Or leave a comment and let us know what else you'd like more clarity on. We'll do our best to cover that in a future video. That's it for today. I'll see you all in the next one.